You know, we've literally all been there, right? You're just going about your day and suddenly you witness it. Absolutely impossible, entitled behavior. Well, today, instead of just rolling our eyes and trying to ignore it, we're going to actually dissect a beautifully chaotic encounter. We're getting into the art of de-escalation in this explainer. Let's just dive right into our case study, Karen versus the hospital. Honestly, this is a masterclass. You'll see how a brilliant hospital manager took a totally unhinged situation and used like psychological redirection to solve the whole shebang. Seriously, grab a pen, you're going to want to take notes.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's a totally normal Tuesday morning. Picture this. You've got busy doctors, nurses hustling from room to room, patients just sitting quietly waiting for their names to be called. Just a peaceful, totally standard hospital vibe. And then, bam, the front doors just absolutely fly open. In walks our subject. We're just going to call her Karen. She is fully armed, giant sunglasses, designer handbag, iced coffee in one hand, and this fiery attitude that looks like it could literally set off the building's fire alarms. She shatters the quiet immediately and just marches right up to the reception desk. Now, what's so wild here is how incredibly fast she sets the stakes. She hasn't even been inside for, 30 seconds? But she slams her hands down on the desk and practically yells, "I have been waiting for 3 minutes." The receptionist, bless her, politely points out the obvious that she literally just walked through the front doors. Karen's response? She looks deeply offended and goes, "Exactly! That's unacceptable." I mean, no way, right? It's so jarring and just completely disconnected from reality that the entire waiting room stops what they're doing and stares. In fact, a little kid sitting nearby actually leans over and whispers, "Mom, is she the final boss?"
And, well, just like any final boss, she immediately levels up the crazy. She slams her purse onto the counter and straight up demands the VIP room. The receptionist, keeping it totally professional, explains the standard protocol. Rooms are assigned by medical need, not by who yells the loudest. But Karen? She tries to weaponize her feelings. She dramatically gasps, "So you're saying my feelings don't matter?" When nobody takes the bait, she actually clutches her chest, faking this whole medical emergency, saying her blood pressure just spiked because of the receptionist's quote-unquote attitude. So a nurse quietly checks the monitor and deadpan tells her that actually her blood pressure is absolutely perfect. Karen doesn't even blink. She just frowns and says, "Well, check it again."
So when logic completely fails, what does entitled behavior do? It pivots to just overwhelming the system with noise. Within 5 minutes, literally just 5 minutes, Karen logs this avalanche of ridiculous grievances. She complains about the chairs, the AC, the vending machine, the parking lot outside, the color of the walls, and get this, even the hospital clock. It's just a rapid-fire barrage, totally designed to put the staff on the defensive and just make everyone around her as miserable as she is.
And to really grasp just how irrational this whole thing is getting, let's zoom in on that clock complaint for a second. Karen points at it and loudly proclaims, "It's ticking too loudly." Okay, this is where the hospital janitor steps in to deliver a quiet, just absolutely crushing dose of reality. He looks at it, looks at her, and whispers, "It's digital." It's hilarious, right? But it also perfectly illustrates her total lack of situational awareness. She's so desperate to be mad that she is literally hallucinating ticking sounds just to add to her list.
All right, which brings us to the first actual physical confrontation of the morning. Karen spots one of those "please sanitize your hands" signs. Instantly, she crosses her arms and just goes, "No." A nurse politely jumps in, explaining it's for everyone's safety. Karen snaps back, "You can't tell me what to do." But here's the best part. As she huffs and crosses her arms even tighter, she leans just a tiny bit too close to the automatic dispenser on the wall. The sensor catches her motion and splash! A giant blob of sanitizer shoots right into her hand. The whole waiting room goes dead silent. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Until suddenly, a little girl in the corner just starts slowly clapping. Just pure unintentional slapstick comedy.
But Karen is definitely not laughing. She turns completely red and screams, "This machine assaulted me!" And she demands to speak to the hospital manager right that second. So, and to the manager. He is calm, friendly, got a big smile on his face. He asks how he can help. Karen points this dramatic, shaking finger at the wall and yells, "Fire that sanitizer!" The manager is, well, he's baffled. He actually has to clarify that she means the machine, pointing out, it just dispenses soap. Karen nods proudly and says, "Exactly." She genuinely 100% expects a hospital administrator to fire an inanimate plastic box.
Okay, so seeing that logic has basically left the solar system at this point, the manager gently tries to pivot. He sighs and suggests they focus on her medical needs for the day. And guys, here is the massive plot twist that freezes the entire room. Karen gives this smug little smile and says, "Oh, I don't have an appointment." Wait, what? She isn't sick. She has zero medical reason to even be there, so why did she show up? She grins and admits she came specifically to leave a one-star review in person. And the reason? She prefers paid parking, and she was furious, like actually furious, that the hospital parking was free. This old guy sitting nearby perfectly sums up what everyone is thinking. He just mutters, "She's evil."
But this is exactly where the hospital manager executes an absolute masterclass in de-escalation. Let's break down his trap step by step. Step 1, he actually agrees with her and offers her special VIP service. He totally strokes her ego, right? Validates her self-importance. Step 2, he personally escorts her away from the busy waiting area, past all these confused doctors, and into an isolated, quiet little room, what he calls the complaint department. Step 3, he hands her a massive stack of forms, tells her to write down every single grievance she's ever had, and then, this is the crucial part, he quietly steps out and closes the door. Click. Just like that, he removes the disruption and gives her this impossible, time-consuming task to just totally drain all that toxic energy.
And oh man, she falls for it hook, line, and sinker. She spends the next 2 hours in that tiny room just furiously scribbling down complaints. And the stuff she comes up with? It's basically modern art. She formally writes that the water fountain looks judgmental. She complains that the ceiling is too ceiling. I don't even know what that means. She notes that the vending machine blinked at her aggressively, and she literally puts in writing that she didn't like the elevator's personality. It really shows how, if you give someone a captive audience, even if it's just a blank piece of paper, that sheer entitlement will stretch to the most bizarre extremes just to feel important.
So 2 whole hours go by, and she has filled page after page. She finally marches out of that room, walks right up to the receptionist, and she's carrying 50 pages of handwritten complaints. Literally 50 pages. She drops them on the desk and announces, "I've finished," looking incredibly satisfied, like she genuinely believes she just single-handedly took down a major medical institution.
The poor receptionist just looks super confused and goes, "Finished what?" That's exactly when the manager pops back up, still rocking that perfect customer service smile. He glances at the massive stack of papers and casually says, "Oh, we recycle those." Karen just freezes. "You? What?" And the manager smoothly replies, "Yeah, they're blank on the back." Boom. The trap is officially sprung. Karen just stares down in horror at the giant stack of papers she spent the last 2 hours pouring her soul into.
But it gets better, because every single page she was writing on, it was carbon copy paper. And here is the absolute genius move by the hospital. The original copies of all 50 pages had been automatically scanning directly into the hospital's internal system as she wrote. So they weren't being thrown away at all, they were being repurposed. Karen had basically accidentally authored the hospital's brand new employee training program, which they aptly titled How to Stay Calm with Difficult Customers. They even mocked up a cover page for it that read Karen's Guide to What Not to Do. By this point, the nurses are trying to hide their laughter. The security guard is literally wiping away tears. They took all her chaotic energy and flipped it into a hilarious educational tool.
Karen gasps. She completely loses it, yelling, "You cannot use my complaints." But the manager, still totally unbothered, delivers the final checkmate. He gently reminds her, "Well, you signed the consent form." She stammers, demanding to know when she ever did that. He points out she signed the very first page before she even started writing. In her absolute rush to complain and flex her supposed VIP status, she totally skipped the fine print. And for what is probably the very first time in her entire life, Karen is completely, utterly speechless.
Totally defeated, she snatches up her designer purse and begins the walk of shame toward the exit. Funny enough, the automatic doors open perfectly for her this time. But, of course, she can't resist one final parting shot. She stops, spins around, points this dramatic finger, and yells her final threat. "I am still leaving a 1-star review." The receptionist, who has clearly been taking notes on the manager's de-escalation tactics, just smiles really warmly and says, "We'll frame it." I mean, it is just the perfect, impenetrable shield of absolute calm.
Karen just stomps outside in a huge huff. But the universe, it's not quite done with her yet. As she storms past the entrance, the automatic hand sanitizer dispenser detects her motion one last time. Splash. One final tiny drop lands right on her hand. Inside, the waiting room just absolutely loses it. Outside, Karen looks up at the sky and screams, "I have been betrayed," as the automatic doors just slowly slide shut, honestly looking a little relieved to finally see her go. Which kind of leaves us with a funny final thought to chew on.
Will someone like Karen ever realize that automatic doors and hand sanitizers are, just machines doing their job? Or is she going to spend the rest of her life feeling personally targeted and betrayed by basic architecture? Honestly, what you should really take away from this explainer is the sheer genius of that manager's strategy. When you're dealing with impossible, entitled behavior that literally feeds on conflict, the absolute best defense isn't fighting back. It's to agree, isolate them, redirect all that wild energy into a totally harmless task, and just let the absurdity burn itself out. So the next time you face a final boss in your own life, remember the carbon copy paper trick. Just stay calm, keep smiling, and hey, maybe you'll get a killer training manual out of it too. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.